Welcome to another Wisdom Podcast with James Stevenson. Today we're going to talk about strategy, transformation, growth, and obviously AI, machine learning, M&A, and everything in between. Uh, Jim is an interesting guy. He's partner at Spark International, founder and CEO, strategy at Bletchley Group, that is, chair at Valor Health, and founder at Tech Startup Machine. So, very multi-potential life type of human being. This podcast is brought to you by podper.com. If you want to start your own podcast, you can go to podper.com. Jim, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and about what you're up to nowadays.
Sure. Bless you. Um, I'm Bletchley Group. I'm Jim Stevenson. I've spent 20 years helping companies to grow predominantly around about technology, product, marketing, strategies, transformation, a bit of turnaround, and laterally helping them fundraise and to do some M&A to do expansion. Bletchley Group is my main company. We got the name via Bletchley Park. I like that concept of using technology for a purpose, as opposed to using technology just because it was cool technology. I named my company Bletchley because it was all about delivering technology for a business objective.
Interesting. And what are you up to nowadays? What's driving you?
Yeah, at the moment, I'm still doing some consultancy work in retail, in healthcare. I'm doing a couple of coaching gigs, so I'm coaching a couple of CEOs, helping them to drive their startup. And a lot of what I'm doing is fundraising at the moment, to be honest. Um, yeah, helping companies to find funding.
And how is funding nowadays? Is it scarce? Is it plentiful? And if so, in what field precisely?
Fundraising is always difficult. It's got more challenging in the last few years. VCs and private equity are being a bit more constrained in what they will invest in. I had one earlier on this week where a partner in a private equity firm was hugely excited by an opportunity that we took to him. We had several meetings. He had organized meetings next week with the leadership team. And yesterday we got told that his investment committee hadn't approved the deal. So it's incredibly difficult at the moment. But I think if you've got a good business, I think if you've got a good plan, I think if you've got a good leadership team, there's always money there. It's just finding the right the right fund to invest in you at the right time. And that's just good business, to be honest.
Yeah, it's been a hell of a year with SVB bank runs, then FTX, then the OpenAI coup lately. So, what do you project for next year for the startups you're working with?
Like I say, if you've got a good idea and you're a good startup, you will be fine. I think the challenge will be for a lot of the middle startups. They've got a reasonably good idea, they're implementing it reasonably well, they're doing okay, they've got some traction. Those guys will find it difficult, just because VCs and private equity are looking for outstanding now. So the challenge for those guys next year will be to tighten up their plan, tighten up their go-to-market, tighten up their product, tighten up their strategy, and just show VCs and private equity funds exactly what they're capable of doing, exactly where the returns are coming from, show them their motivation, show them their drive, because that's what private equity and VC are looking for. They want people that believe in the business that they're investing in.
Right. And you've worked with various startups in the last years with M&A and getting them acquired or acquiring some startups yourself. So what are the tips that you would have as a founder to either acquire startups or to be acquired? What can you tell us in terms of strategy there?
Sure. I'll split it into two. If you're out acquiring someone, then the true strategy there is to make sure that the brief that you've got, the company that you want to acquire, truly aligns with your business. I've seen an awful lot of companies acquiring smaller companies to grow and expand, and it fails. And the predominant reason it fails is they may have the skill set, they may have the geographical reach, they may have a great client list, but if the founders aren't aligned to where you're going, then there will always be that tension. There will always be issues. On a bigger scale, less so the startup market, but in the PE world, we're actually dealing with one client at the moment who sold his business 3 years ago to a private equity firm. The private equity firm came in, couldn't make the business work culturally, drive the strategy, and now they're offering the private equity firm is offering the founder to buy the business back after 3 years because they've just not been able to leverage it and do anything with it. So I think if you're buying a company, make sure that it's aligned, make sure that you're very clear on why you're buying it, make sure that their strategy, your strategy can be aligned, and make sure there's a cultural fit. If you're looking to sell or you're looking to get funding, the best thing to do is prepare. Start early. We get an awful lot of businesses that come to us and say, we're running out of cash in the startup world. We're running out of cash. We need cash in 3 months. 3 months isn't going to do it. You're out there panicking into the market, and no one wants to buy into a panicked business. So give yourself plenty of runway. Give yourself 6 months, 9 months. I do know one startup in the UK that took 12 months to raise, I think it was £3.4 million, about $4 million. It doesn't happen as quickly as you would like it to. It's always a challenge. And again, make sure that there's an alignment between you and your investor. Again, you don't want to give over 20%, 50%, whatever it is of your business to an investor that's got a slightly different strategy, doesn't quite align with you. That just creates problems. So all of these things is about planning, alignment, make sure that you know what you're getting into, and it can be hugely successful. I shouldn't say this, but very often for businesses, going to a VC or going to a private equity fund to get investment in your business shouldn't be your first thought. Your first thought should be, can I have a better product? Can I get more customers? Can I drive revenue myself? If I was to get revenue myself, how much money do I truly need from a VC fund or a private equity fund? And then start the conversation from there. I think far too many startup founders look at VCs as the golden bullet. It's just going to fix everything. I'll go and ask for some money and everything will be great. We can go back to just building a product. And that's not how the world works today.
What you have to, I read on your website that, yeah, you were thrown in interesting situations in your career and you still succeeded to solve problems. Is that like a consultancy niche? You're like a mercenary for hiring and companies have big problems. Let's say SVB, right? They're in deep shit and they're looking for a new CEO. Just like OpenAI was not so long ago. Can you advertise like drop me in very crappy environments and I will fix everything as a service and charge, let's say, $1 million for fixing stuff in companies in 3 to 6 months? Is that a thing?
I'm not sure if it's a thing, but it seems to be my career. So yes, the probably the best example I have for that. First of all, I'm never going to be the SVP or the CEO of SVB or OpenAI for that matter. I was dropped into a firm in the UK. Actually, it was in Europe. We had 6 or 7 offices across the UK and Europe. It was a market research and data analytics business. I was asked by the private equity firm to go in, produce a new strategy, a new go-to-market plan for them, so that they could actually exit the business within 12 months. And I produced the plan for them. It was great. They loved it. They liked it so much they actually offered me the group CEO role to help them exit the business and then move on. And within the first week, it became very apparent that there was some mismanagement, let's say, going on. The cash that they were supposed to have in the bank wasn't there. Some dodgy dealings had been happening, and it went from a growth and exit to a turnaround. And yeah, I turned that business around in 8 months. We put the UK divisions up for sale the month after. We sold those businesses 6 months after. The private equity fund still owns the European businesses. But yeah, I seem to have a knack for going in and finding where your problem is and helping you solve it.
How can you scale that? Because let's simplify stuff. You know, there's businesses that are just comfortable. They won't be interested in hiring anyone. Okay, that's discarded. There's businesses that are healthy and they're doing well, they're supplementing. And there's business that once were supplementing and going on a high level, but now are very sick. Most of them try to hide that from people in the market so that it doesn't go worse. So if I would want to do that as a service, you know, should I just target businesses that are declining in terms of headcount? Should I target business that have been the target of negative news, you know, or like yeah, bad news? Should I target business that are going through big cuts? You know, they're chopping up jobs and costs, or they're just switching leadership. And then I send them a message saying, "Hey, I'm like a mercenary as a service. I help business like yours go better, or like take what's left, you know, and cut your loss and have a nice little exit. You show me the data. I give you the quote, which shouldn't be under 300K, let's say in less than 6 months, can go up to 5 million. And I sign an NDA, obviously, before they give me the data. And then I quote them, they accept the quote, and then we get working. Is that like how we should go?
If only business development was that easy. The challenge with, especially with the turnaround part of the business, of fixing businesses that aren't operating well, there's an ego involved, and most people want to think that they can fix it themselves. And therefore hiring someone in, a mercenary or a freelancer, isn't something that their ego will allow them to do. Equally, you've got the board, which is probably the OpenAI issue, where the board felt that the CEO wasn't doing what they thought was the right thing to do, and they took action. But there's a number of companies out there that do this turnaround, KPMG, McKinsey. There's lots of them do it. There's a whole big group of freelancers that do turnaround as well. Generally, they do it for bigger organizations. Startup world is a bit more challenging. Small to medium-sized businesses, there's a very good market there for someone to actually come in and start productizing the turnaround process. And it's not too different to the startup process, actually. What most turnarounds need is just good basic fundamentals of management. If you've got a problem where you're technically insolvent, then the rules change. You've got to be very careful about what you're doing, how you do it, to make sure that you're not putting any of your creditors in a worse position than you started. But most of it's about doing the basics well. And most companies that get into problems, they've stopped doing that. They've got excited. They've had VC funding. They've thought we can spend money, and everything will be okay. And the reality is, you've still got to do the basics well.
I see first that like, yeah, this job is it should be high paid because it requires a vast array of skills. The first one being keeping your shit together.
Yeah.
Because yeah, like there will be a lot of people internally that will try to take you down, the company down. There will a lot of journalists and external people that will try to take you down. Having balls of steel also, it's not only not having fear, it's taking very hard decisions that like only crazy people would think, but in hindsight, it would make a lot of sense, you know?
Yeah,
Then I can think of self-regulation. I can think of having coaches. I can think of cutting yourself from the news and yeah, sometimes even internal actors, right? Because people
yeah.
in their moments when they're stressed, they say a lot of dumb things and that they don't really mean these things. And in hindsight, they're gonna be happy if you lead the boat to the coast, right? Then you need to be, yeah, a great manager. You need to know PR, obviously, because if you do a brash move, you don't want the journalist to eat your business up, you know? I mean, they can't really eat it up, but they can cause like substantial damage if like they all pair up together and they group think and so forth. So what do you think about these skills?
Yeah, absolutely. I think PR and what you communicate out of the business is hugely important. Perception is very, very important to businesses. The benefit I bring to most of these organizations is that I have a very eclectic career. So I'm very commercial in my understanding. I worked in Scotland in construction, which covered a lot of legal contracts and financial dealings within the construction world. Then I moved into writing code. So I've got a technical background. I've been CTO in businesses before. I jumped from there into working in marketing and was the global digital director for Bicari. I then moved into doing a bit of transformation work and strategy work and turnaround work. So I've been in lots of different functions within a business. So what I bring generally is the ability to cut through all of that. I can talk sensibly to the CMO. I can talk sensibly to the CPO. I can talk sensibly to the CTO and just get them all talking the same language and bring them together. Because lots of companies have challenges with silos, and breaking down those functional silos into a cohesive team is the first step. The second step is making sure that everyone culturally is aligned. And we're all know where we're going. So the American military have an acronym, which I'm probably going to get wrong now. It's called VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And when you're into this turnaround world of fixing companies that aren't performing well, it's a great acronym because everything is volatile. You don't really know what you've got. Everything's uncertain. You're not quite sure what comes next. So if you think about those words in that acronym, it then tells you that one of the key things you've got to do is start having a plan, start communicating the plan. And very often communicating the plan is a challenge. In the nicest possible way, you don't want to lie to people, but at the same time, you can't tell everybody everything. If you're planning to make 10% of your workforce redundant, you can't tell them that until it's the right time, until you go through the formal process of making redundancies and things like that. So although you know it's in your plan, you've got to keep those things to yourself. Otherwise, the plan doesn't work. And that makes it a big challenge. At the same time, you've got to be authentic. You've got to be true to yourself. And you don't want to come across as a nasty guy or just a kind of guy that comes in and cuts and slashes and things. So you've got to balance that line very, very finely. And it is absolutely a challenge.
Thanks for coming on today, Jim. Where can people find out more about you?
Bletchley.com, so BLETCHLEY group.com, or my LinkedIn, Jim Stevenson, so linkedin.com/Jim Stevenson.